Wyn and I want to express our gratitude for every one of our listeners. Thank you for being a part of this podcast and sharing this space with us each week. We are now offering an opportunity to work with Wyn or myself individually in a deeper look towards what's true about life and who you really are. If you'd like to know more, email me or Wyn for more details. In a 3-day dive under the noise, anything is possible. Let's find out. Now onto the podcast.
Welcome. This podcast is an exploration into being human and what's possible when there's less attention on the noise in our heads. Warning. While listening to this broadcast, you may experience moments of deep peace, sighs of relief, personal insights, or long stretches of dead air. Do not be afraid. This is normal. Under the Noise with Wyn Morgan and Kate Roberts.
Welcome to this week's episode of Under the Noise with me, Wyn Morgan, and my wonderful co-host, Kate Roberts. Hello, Kate.
Hey, Wyn.
Hi, and we are honored to have our special guest today, Mark Howard. Dr. Mark Howard. Hello, Mark. Good to see you.
Hi, Wyn and Kate. Yeah, nice being here.
So one question we love to ask our guests, and it does put them on the spot a little bit. I'd love you to introduce yourself to anyone listening, and especially anyone who's never met you or heard your name before. What would you love people to know about you?
So, well, hello, everyone. Well, professionally, I'm a Ph.D. psychologist and have worked in the field over 40 years now, and have probably seen people who have struggled with anything in life. You know, it's been quite a broad experience with people, and it's been very rewarding to really help people find their well-being and health, and really their own wisdom about how to solve their life problems. I've also been married more than those 40 plus years, 50 years now. And I attribute being in this marriage in a deep feeling of love and appreciation to the understanding I found, 40 years ago around how we function psychologically and where love and understanding really exist. And I have a adult son, and he's married. He lives in Los Angeles, California, and I have a 2.5-year-old grandson. And he's coming to visit us. We live by San Francisco, and they're coming up next week. So we're going to spend a week with them, and I always love that.
Terrific. So I'm going to share something about you, Mark, that when I first was struck by you was at the Three Principles Global Conference, and this was in late September or early October 2016 in Los Angeles in Westlake, that conference.
Yeah.
And in one of the afternoons when we had breakouts, and we were assigned rooms, and I was assigned the room that you were in. And I just remember sitting in this room with 20 other people, and it was you and Barbara Patterson, I think, were at the front of the room. And I was in such peace inside. I don't think I could say a word for about 12 hours. I was just floating. And how much I enjoyed listening to you in that room, and then having the honor to really get to know you a bit more in the last few months in the Pacific.
How beautiful is that? Yeah. I always wondered how they got people in the room. I didn't know they assigned people. So I was, I thought I was the draw, but people were assigned. I like the joke, but when it's beautiful, that's really the feeling. I remember that I really found that feeling in me and with Barb Patterson, and it's just wonderful that that came to you as well. Yeah, and I've enjoyed getting to know you more, really in the last couple of months. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know we had a very quick chat before we started to record today. What's in your mind that would be great for anyone listening to hear today in your mind?
I think really it's trying to convey the simplicity of our psychological functioning. It's really complicated, or maybe even looking at mental health or well-being, how there's a simplicity in discovering that, and it's really complicated in the popular culture of the field, but really what I've seen recently in listening to the person I learned this understanding from, Sydney Banks, who had this experience that has now been being shared worldwide and in a lot of mental health fields. But really to see that that how we experience our moment-to-moment life, the experiences that we might have that are like greed or envy or jealousy or desire or joy or humor, are all really originating from the way we use this wonderful gift we're given to think, and to really see it just really that simple. The experiences we're having are really the result of how we are engaging the thinking that comes through our minds. And I don't mean it in a way that you look at your thinking, but that you become more reflective about the power you have to think, that you really have this ability as soon as you're born to think and really to know your life. And the way you know your life is through thought. And so I just saw how simple that is, really, that each moment we're just creating an experience through the way we use this power of thought. And I find that helpful when I wake up to it and when other people wake up to it, to really move us to look within ourselves for the understanding we want to find, to look at life through the lens of understanding, goodwill, our own well-being, and happiness. And so understanding that we're creating an experience from thought has us look within. And that really saved me when I first saw this, because I think, like all of us, until you really see the nature of your own thinking and realize it to be the creator of your experience, I'm blaming my experience on everything that's happening to me. So my job, my relationships, even my car was the victim of being blamed for, my stressful thinking or my upsets, and even my good feelings. So, when you look at even good feelings being the result of people in your life or somebody treating you nicely or things like that, it kind of, you kind of get dependent on making sure people are a certain way. So once I had a realization to look within to the way I'm engaging thinking, I got more freedom from having to have my circumstances just right.
Mhm. I'm intrigued about how your car became the victim, about that story.
How my what?
Your car seemed to be the victim of your, like, what
Well,
happened?
well, if it didn't work right, I was upset the whole day. Or I not so much frantic. Not so much upset. I was frantic, stressed out. You know,
Yeah.
but it also was, the reason for me sometimes to be happy. Right? Oh, look at this beautiful car. Not that you couldn't like things around you, but I was giving them all the power for my feelings and thoughts.
You know what struck me bizarrely, just as a random thought that came into my head, was a scene from the TV show Faulty Towers. So John Cleese, who used to be one of the four people in Monty Python, after Monty Python disbanded, and he did a sitcom called Faulty Towers about this hotel manager, very highly strung hotel manager called Basil Fawlty, that John Cleese was playing. And in one scene, he got so cross at his car that he got a branch off a tree and started hitting the car, because the car was the fault for his exasperation. Yeah. So I kind of knew it wouldn't be that extent, but that's what just came into my mind.
Well, if you look at that in terms of my just sharing today, that sense of simplicity that, to me, it is constantly evolving. You could see the power of thought to get that amped up. If you keep engaging frustrations with something or someone, you could get that amped up and reactive. We have it out here in the States, in the United States, we have road rage, and probably everywhere they have major highways and traffic, but that's just amped up. It just started with a simple, frustrating thought about your car. And if you keep engaging it, once again, the simplicity, if you keep looking at it that way, you're going to get more intense. And so I could see that, I didn't get as far as ruining the car, I thankfully had enough common sense to stop, even though I may have had a thought to take a hammer to it. I had the common sense to stop.
That's a relief.
Yeah. Mark, I love what you said, though, about when you're seeing how things work, you don't necessarily need the outside to be a certain way. And when you don't need that, it seems like it would free up so much space just in your, mental space in your life for something new. When you don't need things to be a certain way, you're not trying to control them or push up against them. It would seem that there was a lot of space created there.
Oh, I think that's really true. And the space then is filled with beautiful feelings. It's filled with the feelings that are really deeply within us. So when you can settle down, having to control your circumstances or other people, and the space, that opens up is, to me, what I would call your true nature. You just start to find more positive feelings. You don't need to practice positive thinking to have positive feelings. Kate, what you're bringing up is the minute you can gain freedom from thinking so much about your outside circumstances getting so right, that isn't occupying space in your mind. You immediately get filled with beautiful feelings, what you're looking for, actually. And I mean, that's kind of like, for a lot of people, a paradox, because they've been looking for nice feelings with getting those circumstances just right, But then, to see that it has all to do with quieting down your thinking about all of that they're right there naturally for you. That really gave me a deep feeling of awe and wonder about our nature. To see that all these beautiful feelings show up the minute we stop controlling our circumstances. And I think people control their circumstances because they're looking for a good feeling. And the paradox is it's there, it's been there the whole time. It's been there the whole time were it not for your thinking.
Right.
Yeah. Can I share a story?
Please.
So I've spent some time, not a lot of personal time, but some time with, as I mentioned earlier, Sydney Banks, who had this beautiful epiphany around the nature of life and our own true nature and sort of what he might call the spiritual nature of life, but really just seeing that there's more to life than what we've learned to think. And we were meeting with him as a small group. And at that time in North America, there was all these programs developed to teach young children self-esteem. It looked like to many educators that if children could be in self-esteem, that would be a good thing, and that is true. But again, looking from the understanding that it comes from the outside, there were a lot of programs to try to form self-esteem in children. So we talked about that with Sydney Banks, and he just all of a sudden said, wait a minute, you already have self-esteem. I'm kind of slowing it down. He said it faster, but he said, you already have self-esteem were it not for your silly beliefs. So, Kate, we're kind of back to another angle on what you shared, that he wasn't denigrating our beliefs. He was trying to help us see not to hold our beliefs so seriously, and that without our engaging those beliefs, we'd have self-esteem. Back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago, these beautiful feelings are there for you as you settle down your thinking about getting your circumstances right. But isn't that powerful to see? I mean, that just hit me. Like, I couldn't really live that at the time I heard that, but I knew it was true. And it set my sights on looking for those feelings in me rather than following my beliefs about it. But isn't that awesome? I mean, isn't that really, it's really simple on one level to just see you already have these beautiful feelings. You don't have to, take a 3-day workshop on self-esteem. Isn't that something?
And that says something too about this understanding. Say if you compared it with other ways of looking at it, all the different writers and books and of spirituality and everything is, that's one of the things that I've always loved about the principles is its simplicity. It takes something that can be very complicated but it simplifies our experience in a way that, honestly, that feels like truth. It feels like a truth that we've known when we were younger, and we just got more caught up and but it speaks to a truth that I think we all know to at some level. And I think that's what people, when they hear about the principles, it speaks to that, and people settle down. At least that's my experience of it. It was just so simple. And of course, my mind's like, it can't be that simple. But it, that's what I've seen about it. And even to your point about teenagers, and I have a teenager, and I taught high school for almost 15 years. And I found that in all of my interactions with teenagers, the one thing that I kind of felt like seems to help more than any other is when they realize that it's temporary. That all the stuff that's happening to them, all the stuff they're caught up in, they can go with it and take off and get more caught up. And they could, and they do. We all do. But something about when young people realize that the ups and downs that they're constantly feeling, that their noise is so loud, when they realize that it's temporary and they don't need to do anything about it, that there's nothing to do about it seems to settle down for them. And it's, also a good reminder for me when I'm caught up that it's temporary and that I will come back to my own well-being. Mark, you talk about engaging, like as we're engaging our thoughts. If someone came to you and said, Mark, I don't know how to not engage. It feels really real. My beliefs are showing up around this. Like, how would you, what would you say to somebody who doesn't understand about that engaging thought or how to stop engaging it?
Well, when people, so I think when people begin to ask that question, like you said earlier, the truth of it, they touched the truth of it. They saw the truth of it. So they're trying to find, how do I get there, given the way I think about things, right? So the way I think about things is, help me change my thinking. So I help people see that really it's about an understanding taking place, that there must be a realization about the nature of their thinking. They have to see it at a level of a source of learning we all have, is to learn through insight or through realizing knowledge rather than taking in knowledge. So I usually have a conversation to help them see that we can keep talking and they will find an understanding. Once that occurs, they get their own freedom of thought. They get to see they could think any way they want to. So it's not really about talking to people about changing their thinking. My goodness, early on in my work, that's all I did was share with people ways to change their thinking. Now, what I found from that, some people would find something in that was helpful. Some people would practice my strategy 3 days and give up on it. And, so it really didn't have a lasting effect. But when people realize what we're speaking to today for themselves, they saw it their way. They get, again, a way to see it beyond their conditioned way of thinking, beyond the thinking they're trying to change. It changes automatically. So I've had people say to me, I'm sharing, and all of a sudden they'll say, "Wow, I just saw that. I give my attention to every thought that comes into my mind. I hadn't noticed that before. I'm looking at every thought that comes into my mind. And I just realized with what we were talking about, I don't have to do that anymore."
Mm.
So it's quite natural for people to realize what we're pointing to here today for themselves, and then find a way to think beyond it.
Mm. Mm.
And isn't it, see, where that understanding is coming from, that way of being of service to people is coming from, is again, finding my own insights into the fact that every human being has within them already a way of understanding the nature of life. They already have within them the knowledge about their own psychological functioning in their own way. So I already know there's a source of wisdom, you might want to call, within all of us. And if I could guide people to listen to that, they would find their own way to handle their thinking. And you're right, children don't even have to know this. They do it already. They drop their thinking all day long. I was just we FaceTime with my grandson. So he's always loved talking to us. He calls us Papa and Nani. But lately, my son will say, "We'll come and say hello to Nani and Papa." "No, I don't want to." And he runs around the house. "No, no, 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 no." And so then, I'm talking to my son. So there's our grandson. And, "No, I don't want to. No, I don't want to. No, 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 no." And then we come to say goodbye. He goes, "I want to say goodbye to Nani and Papa." So he automatically just dropped. "No, no, 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 no. Oh yeah, now I want to go say goodbye." You see, he changed his thinking in a heartbeat. So we just get innocently, because that happens to all human beings. And that's the understanding that helps us in our relationships. All human beings have innocently learned to respect their thinking, and so they spend more time with disturbing thoughts. And along the way, these disturbing thoughts have gained a truth value, so they think it's true. So, but that's just what happens, as you were mentioning, Kate. But once people start to wake up to that, realize what's going on, they could do like what you've noticed about these teenagers, they could find something that happens within them, so they remember once again, "Oh, I could just let this alone and it'll pass." So there's the saving grace of this understanding coming to bear that helps people come back to finding the ability to let their thinking go.
One thing, Mark, And Kate, you brought it up as well today, and it's what you started with, Mark, about the simplicity of this. And what I hear as well is that when someone sees that it might be this simple, is that they will resist it because it's that simple. Like, well, I think one of you said earlier on, it can't be that simple. And then there's an internal thought storm that can go off in someone's head about it's this simple. No, it can't be that simple.
Yeah.
How do you point that out to somebody that maybe it might be that simple after all?
Well, when two things, I don't want to lose what you just said at the end there, but I want you to, I attended most of Sydney Banks' seminars that he gave to the public.
Mm.
And they're now available free for the public to view. Three of his public seminars. And you could see on some of those, he say, it's that simple. I've been saying the same thing for 26 years. It's that simple. Like, why aren't you getting it yet? Why do I have to do another seminar? It's just human nature to complicate, to not, without a realization of where our experience comes from. We're caught in, there's got to be more to this than simply realizing this is just my thinking. And once people get into that place, they've got all of the evidence from the past. So that cements it in. But when I would just have a dialogue of what you just ended with. And I did forget the words you said, but at times I would say, well, what could we talk about together that you could see that it is this simple? So when I'm talking with people about this, it's kind of like a partnership of discovery. So I know it seems difficult for people to feel it is simple in the way that the experience they're having is being created by thought without judgments or just seeing the truth of that. So I'll invite people to talk with me. So together we could find a way to help them have an understanding that moves them more to see the simplicity. So I've listened to Sydney Banks 40 years and watching this video in order to just get a sense of what I'm going to share to the group of practitioners, all of a sudden I saw the simplicity deeper. You see, so we're always evolving our understanding. But to help people at the very beginning of introducing the truth of where our experience comes from, I'll invite people to see, well, there's some way you and I can talk about this together that will help you see it deeper with more simplicity. Let's keep talking and see if we could find a way. And when we do, when we do that together, something will occur to me or something will occur to the client. Because we're not looking at this topic today, but because there's a wisdom at work that's kind of guiding both of us to see a truth. And I just know that to be true, and I have faith in that. So I don't know where we would go in that discussion, but I know that we would keep looking at this together until one of us sees something that could be helpful. Now, that's different work with people than I used to do when I was trained traditionally, when I was the so-called expert. Now I'm just along with you. I'm just as human as you are. And And sometimes in saying, let's just talk about it together and see where to go, I'm really saying, I don't know yet how to share this with you. But if we keep talking, we'll find something. And that's beautiful to see that we could go on a journey together for this and discover. It's really a process of discovery. And that's exciting.
I remember, I'm pretty sure I heard a recording of this, or I was on a webinar with you. I'm going back maybe 10 years. And you said, well, my job is to exchange notes with someone of how we think life works. That's it. I might have paraphrased it slightly differently than you actually might have said it, but it was just about comparing notes to how life looks to us, as opposed to one being the expert and one being the student.
Yeah.
Which I remember that vividly, and how helpful that's been to me.
Yeah.
Quite a long time now.
The piece, I think the piece for that is truly knowing to some level, sitting with the fact that this human being and any human being in your life, anybody in your life, has a wisdom for their life, not for you assuming how their life should be, but they're knowing that they have a wisdom that they could touch it through pointing them to how they work psychologically. That wisdom will guide them for their life, their way. And so that's why we're just sitting in the ease of that. Hey, this is what I've seen. What do you think of that? Or someone saying, I really need for you to tell me how to change my thinking. You got an exercise for me to help them see, wait, let's look. That's, to me, it's about this understanding. Let's look at that together. What would that mean for you? But the beauty of it, the truth of it is that you don't want to assume. The reason you're not an expert, let's say I said you're not an expert, is an expert assumes the direction at which you should be sharing with people. You have some assumptions of what they need. But what we're really looking at is we really know that if a human being can find a realization and insight from their own wisdom, where it comes, they'll be guided their way. So that's why it's just exchanging notes, in a way, just having this dialogue of discovery. Isn't that something, though, to really sit knowing that and have faith in that and keep yourself coming back to that? But that's really the truth I found. And when you speak to people from that understanding, they will hear it and you'll be surprised at what they come up with. I mean, there are times people came up with their own realizations about how to take care of a relationship or a job issue, or their own certainty about life, their own getting beyond their self-doubts, way beyond anything I could have come up with, So that's where that came from, sitting in that understanding.
I love that. And I think that's such a different conversation. than maybe when you first got started in psychology, is that when you get to sit with somebody that has that kind of faith in their own wisdom and in the wisdom in the person that you're speaking with, and who is comfortable not knowing. Like, that's incredible. So when you sit with someone and you're like, I have no idea, but I know if we look in this direction, we'll see something about any topic that might happen in someone's life. I love that conversation.
Yes, and I've mentored and supervised a lot of mental health practitioners, and me too, that had to get past the insecurity of being in a space of not knowing. Now, the other piece to that is you too, if you're called on to be of help in your particular profession, education, coaching, health practice, you have wisdom too guiding you. So sitting and not knowing is easier the more you really know or have faith that you'll see something. And so and that is so different from how I was trained. And like that was like 40 plus years ago now that I was doing traditional work. But I think I shared it when at the training that when I really was touched and really had a realization that I would call now the true nature of our psychological functioning. But I just saw one little thing at that moment, 40 years ago, listening to Sydney Banks. When I went back to my clinic, I was working there as a staff psychologist in a psychiatric department. I really told all of my clients that I saw that day, I can't do what we used to do, because I knew all they needed to do was see now I didn't see it this way then. Now I'm telling you from looking back, all they needed to do was see that the simplicity of what was creating their experience, they were coming to me to get help with. So, I introduced that with people, but everyone wanted to hear something new, what I had seen. So that first person who was working with me on anger towards her mother, we were now talking about, well, can you see where anger comes from? Well, can you see that it's coming from whatever words I used? I forgot what they were now, but something like thought creates your feelings. Your feelings of anger, they're just made up. They're just your way of thinking, So, but people loved it. And Kate, I think it goes back to something you said earlier. I think people hear the truth of it. Like I was speaking to people from a deeper truth than my traditional training. So they listened. Wow, we're covering a lot together today. Oh my goodness. I didn't know we would get into all these topics. It's wonderful, wonderful feeling. I'm impressed at the amount of ground we've covered.
Me too. That's always a joy to listen as to how many areas, even if you and I are having kind of just conversations about football or brisket, how that easily then like molds into lots of other things. And yeah, it's been a joy, Mark, as always. And I think the last few minutes of what you just shared then regarding your before and after in helping people, I'll never get tired of hearing that, of seeing the difference, because it feels fresh every time I hear it.
Well, it was so astounding that when I go back to the feeling of it, it's fresh again. It's like, it's not like just sharing a story. It's sharing the truth of the matter of a human being, me, no one special, waking up to seeing the truth of how we work psychologically, seeing the truth of where feelings come from. And that's never stale. That's never, because here I was in my training, I honored all these feelings and got people to explore feelings. And I have nothing against people having feelings, but to be able to share with people what creates them so they gain a way to get freedom to think any way they want. That's what I found that evening and listening to Sydney Banks. And so, when I share it, it's just, I get back to the feeling of the truth of the matter.
And it really does speak to a knowing that everyone has. That's why I think, and we've talked about this, Wyn and I on the podcast, is that oftentimes the words don't end up mattering because we're speaking to something that people inherently understand, even if they don't know that they do. They do. They know it from a different place.
Isn't that a wonderful understanding to have as you go into life? Like the people in relationship with you, the people in your love relationships, have the same, they're the same energy as you. They're the same wisdom as you, and they're using thought their way. That's all that's going on, and to see that and to, look to that in in people that are close to you, to just look there, rather than in the ways that they have with you. It deepens the relationship.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Well, this has been a pleasure. Oh my goodness. You're going to cut this for sure.
Not now. We'll keep that in.
This has been a pleasure. Oh my goodness, the feeling in the two of you, and it's just been great to connect. I just love being here. And thank you for inviting me. This is just wonderful.
Thank you. And thanks, Wyn.
Thank you, Kate.
You've been listening to Under the Noise. I'm Kate Roberts. I'm here with Wyn Morgan and our special guest today, Mark Howard. Hope you have a wonderful week. If you have any questions or comments or suggestions for topics, please reach out. Our details follow the podcast. Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining us. We'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and review. If you have a topic or question that you'd like us to chat about, email Wyn or Kate at wyn@winning.co.uk and kate@katerobertscoaching.com. Until then, enjoy what's possible under the noise.